Before I begin, I highly recommend checking the glossary and detailed explanations in the pinned comment below. This is crucial because some specific terms may be easily misunderstood or misinterpreted, which could significantly affect your understanding of the Dhamma. To ensure you grasp the true essence of these teachings, please refer to those notes as you listen. Here is a brief note on this translation. This work, authored by the Venerable Elder Thích was translated by a student of the path who has done their best to support those wishing to learn but cannot access the original texts. While every effort has been made to maintain the purity of the teaching, there may still be areas for improvement. Your constructive comments are deeply appreciated to help refine this work. And now, The Path to the Buddha's Land, Part 1. The ARAHANT. The appearance of an ARAHANT shakes and overturns the ideologies of philosophy, theology, Zen study, and so on. It restores the foundation of humanistic ethics of cause and effect, helping humanity build a life of heaven and ultimate bliss right here in this world. Open Letter. Chonyu, August 24, 2003. Respectfully addressed to the Venerable Elders, Most Venerable Monks, Venerable Monks, Reverend Monks, Monks, Nuns, and all lay Buddhist followers everywhere. Respected friends, the Buddhist culture book series, The Path to the Buddha's Land and The Ethics of Being Human, have now been approved by the state for printing and distribution. These two series are among the Buddhist culture collections that include the 10 Holy Precepts for Novice Monks, the Holy Precepts for Monks and Nuns, and Humanistic Ethics and the Law of Cause and Effect. These are books of original Buddhist culture, recorded by the author through his own hard work and practice, following the Buddha's original path of precepts, concentration, and wisdom. It brings a very practical and concrete result for a peaceful, relaxing, and happy life as a human being. Living without afflicting oneself and afflicting others, and mastering birth, aging, sickness, and death. If anyone wants to bring these books out to judge right or wrong, let them practice exactly like the author, which means they must practice to master birth, aging, sickness, and death. If you have not mastered these 4 sufferings, but still try to judge this book series, you should know that you do not yet have the ability to do so. If you judge it for some worldly reason related to your livelihood, then you are too shallow, deceiving yourself and deceiving others to cover up things that do not belong to Buddhism. By doing so, you have forgotten the duty and responsibility of a Buddhist disciple, which is to eliminate the heretical views hiding in the house of the true Dhamma. This book teaches that there is no metaphysical world. If you say, there is a metaphysical world, you must practice until you have the threefold knowledge, then observe the universe to find where the souls of the dead, gods, saints, ghosts, and demons are, and see if they exist or not. Only then should you judge whether this book is right or wrong. If you say this book does not teach the Buddha's true words, please bring the Nikaya scriptures to compare. You must also live exactly the holy life of a holy monk or holy nun. In meditation, you must successfully enter the 4 holy jhanas, master this life, keep your mind free from greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt. You must master sickness, no longer going to hospitals or seeing doctors, but overcome the pain of illness yourself so it can no longer affect your body and mind. And you must master life and death. When you can master all these things, then you can judge whether this book is right or wrong according to Buddhist teachings. If you have not achieved this, please do not discuss it. Instead, focus on your own practice to save yourself. Because you have not mastered life and death, relying on the interpretations of scholars from the past and present is just like a blind man touching an elephant. You will only become a joke to those who truly understand. Why is that? Because your words cannot be proven by your own practice. Words that do not go together with living actions and mastering the body and mind are nothing but empty talk. Respected friends, Buddhism is a religion with a foundation of humanistic ethics of cause and effect for humanity. These ethics will help people build a life of heaven and ultimate bliss right here in this world. Therefore, we have no right to let it be buried again. If it is lost, humanity on this planet will suffer a huge loss, and especially, Buddhism will become nothing but a superstitious religion. Please pay attention to this. Finally, we sincerely wish you all abundant health in body and mind. Respectfully signed, Venerable Elder Thích Tong Lak. Forward. Today is the first class on the practice method and the path of cultivation in Buddhism. Let all monks and lay Buddhists join hands and recite the holy name of the Buddha. Namo, the original teacher, Sakyamuni Buddha, 3 times. These are the lessons of humanistic ethics of cause and effect for being human. They have been trained and cultivated by those with sufficient affinity since Buddhism first appeared on this planet. The founder of Buddhism is respectfully called Sakyamuni Buddha by later generations. He cultivated on his own, realized the truth on his own, and awakened to the profound Dhamma, practically attaining the mastery over birth, aging, sickness, and death. That is a true liberation from the human life full of sufferings, which constantly continues in the endless cycle of birth and death. Buddhism has been present on this earth for 2,541 years up to now. However, if we carefully study the scriptures and the history of Buddhism according to the original canon, we will see. When the Buddha was still alive, the bhikkhus practiced exactly according to the right Dhamma. However, after Venerable Ananda passed away, and in the times that followed, all bhikkhus practiced the wrong methods of Buddhism. Venerable Ananda was the last disciple of the Buddha to enter Nibbana. Consequently, there was no fully enlightened person left to steadily steer the ship of Buddhism. Therefore, the Brahmanic patriarchs arbitrarily gathered and compiled the scriptures based on their own subjective understanding and speculative imagination. Having absolutely no experience in actual spiritual attainment, they compiled the developed scriptures in a manner of secularization mixed with folk superstition. Therefore, when the patriarchs, who had not attained enlightenment, went to other countries to spread the teachings, they were completely assimilated by other religions. For this reason, the Mahayana-developed scriptures are merely a mixed collection of speculative writings without any roots. Even within those first 100 years, while the Buddha was still alive, many bhikkhus did not live according to the holy life. They did not abandon desires and evil phenomena. Consequently, the Buddha was forced to establish the Patimokkha precepts to prohibit them. Yet, since the introduction of these precepts, the bhikkhus committed even more violations. This scriptural passage is based on the interpretation of the patriarchs in Mahayana Sutras. However, through our study of the original scriptures, the truth is entirely different. In the Samanaphala Sutta, the Buddha taught the precepts comprehensively, without missing a single rule. Prohibitive precepts, moral precepts, behavioral precepts, and practice precepts, as recorded in Volume 1 of the Digha Nikaya in the Pali Canon. It was only the prohibitive precepts that were later compiled by the patriarchs and falsely attributed to the Buddha. In the rules of prohibition created by the patriarchs, we can see massive errors. For example, the Buddha was a fully enlightened one with perfect wisdom. How could he establish precepts and then have to amend them over and over again? Do you think this makes sense? In contrast, in the Samanaphala Sutta, the Buddha only preached the fruits of the holy conduct for a Buddhist monk to King Ajatasattu exactly once, and never had to correct or revise it. From this fact, we know clearly that the rules of prohibition were written and compiled entirely by the patriarchs. When the Buddha entered Nibbana, his great disciples lacked the sufficient authority to manage an overwhelmingly large sangha of 1,250 bhikkhus. Therefore, after the cremation of the Buddha, his great disciples, specifically Mahakassapa, directly heard some bhikkhus expressing joy upon receiving the news of the Buddha's passing. After the funeral, Mahakassapa hastily convened a council and conducted the first compilation of the scriptures and precepts, establishing them as the foundation for Buddhism in the future. Since the Buddha's passing, the scriptures and precepts were established according to the patriarchs, but the seeds of division and the violation of precepts had already existed while the Buddha was alive. Therefore, very few people still preserved and truly lived according to the holy virtues. When Venerable Ananda died, there was no one left with sufficient leading authority. Consequently, the Sangha gradually split into many different sects, up to 20 sects, and each sect formed its own interpretations of the scriptures and precepts. Because of this, the developed scriptures of Buddhism multiplied massively over time. It is precisely these scriptures that led to the complete deviation from Buddhism, causing it to lose its roots. Buddhist monks no longer lived according to the holy life. Their minds could not abandon desires and evil phenomena. As a result, their meditation practice yielded no results. They could not enter true concentration, and the vast majority fell into wrong concentration. Therefore, nowadays, very few people practice right mindfulness and enter right concentration correctly. The 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 4 holy jhanas of dwelling in present bliss have become nothing more than empty theories. Scholars, preachers, and practitioners who have not attained true realization use their speculative imagination and subjective interpretations to preach the suttas on the 4 noble truths, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 holy jhanas, the 10 wholesome actions, the ethics of cause and effect of Buddhism, and so on. They cannot profoundly explain these teachings. They only preach in circles, repeating the speculative ideas of the ancients, and then mix in borrowed concepts from other religions and even from modern science. Reading the commentaries written by these scholars, monks, and teachers, one sees that the essence of the true Dhamma is completely blurred. Their mixing of the secular life with the holy life is absolutely ridiculous. It is neither true secular life nor true holy life. They absurdly patch together completely unrelated concepts, just like a shirt stitched with random pieces of cloth. Ignorant of the true method of practice, they invent methods out of their imagination based on science, martial arts, macrobiotics, qigong, yoga, and so on. These practices violently suppress the body and mind, creating countless diseases for ignorant practitioners who push themselves into death and suffering without even realizing it. The developed scriptures of Buddhism are overwhelmingly abundant. Yet, one cannot find a single book that teaches how to practice to the ultimate end. Reading them, one finds nothing but empty theoretical arguments, while their practical methods are entirely borrowed from heretical religions. Precisely those who have written these books displayed for sale have achieved absolutely nothing in their cultivation. They are still chasing after worldly sensual pleasures just like ordinary people. Thus, it is crystal clear that they are not liberated. After 10 years in solitary retreat, strictly living up to the precepts according to the holy life, and practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 4 holy jhanas, we have personally witnessed the results of these methods, completely mastering life and death and putting a definitive end to the cycle of rebirth. Upon leaving the retreat, we established Chan Nu Monastery with the unwavering determination to restore the Buddha Dhamma. 17 years have passed. So many people came to practice with us, yet none of them could even accomplish the basic disciplines of eating, sleeping, and dwelling in solitude. If they cannot even do that, how can they practice the concentration without outflows to abandon desires and evil phenomena? If one cannot abandon desires and evil phenomena, how can one possibly enter the 4 holy jhanas of dwelling in present bliss? If one cannot enter the 4 holy jhanas of dwelling in present bliss, one will never master life and death, and will never end the cycle of rebirth. In our monastery, there are only a few people left who truly live the holy life, abandoning desires and evil phenomena. Currently, they are practicing quite deeply into the 4 foundations of mindfulness to achieve the true jhanas. They will be the ones to reignite the light of Buddhism in the future if living beings have enough affinity. However, if affinity is lacking, meaning people are short of merit, these practitioners will not have enough willpower and perseverance to fight against the final karmic forces of their lives. In that case, the restoration of Buddhism will be extremely bleak and tremendously difficult. Because precepts are the absolute gateway to enter the house of meditation, and these precepts are extremely strict. Therefore, living perfectly in accordance with the precepts is immensely difficult. The path of cultivation in Buddhism is extremely practical and concrete for everyone. Anyone can liberate themselves from the sufferings of this world through a Dhamma life, a life of abandoning desires and evil phenomena. Only by living a life free from desires and evil phenomena will the Buddhist practice yield true results. Otherwise, cultivation is utterly useless. It benefits neither oneself nor others, and only accumulates karmic debts to the lay donors. Because living the Dhamma life strictly requires abandoning desires and evil phenomena, very few people can endure it. The vast majority give up their practice entirely, or merely practice in appearance, or distort Buddhism into a different form, like the bodhisattva conduct, to comfortably indulge in worldly, sensual pleasures. Thinking it over and over, we hesitated many times. Should we release the teaching curriculum on the Buddhist path of cultivation for the generations of tomorrow? If the true Buddhist path of cultivation is not disseminated in this era, especially the humanistic ethics of cause and effect for liberation, not afflicting oneself and not afflicting others, where will humanity head to? And how immense will their suffering be? The blind ignorance of humans from ancient times until now has led them to mistakenly cling to worldly phenomena as permanent realities, believing that material abundance will bring them true happiness. Because of this delusion, they fiercely hold on to these things and refuse to let go. As a result, evil phenomena multiply, wholesome phenomena decline, and human suffering continuously deepens. Out of deep compassion for humanity, for those who have followed Buddhism from ancient times to the present and into the future, generation after generation, we see that they find no liberation. They only encounter sorrow, lamentation, suffering, sickness, and death, leading to even greater agonies. Endless practice merely provides abstract, vague psychological comfort without any concrete reality. There is no way out. They are trapped going around in circles within the bewitching maze of heretical teachings. Look at the examples of our past masters and patriarchs. Before they died, they had to endure exceptionally bitter sufferings. This makes us deeply ponder and worry about our own destiny and the fate of our future disciples. Can Buddhism in particular, and other religions in general, truly resolve human suffering? Most notably, the four fundamental sufferings of the human condition: birth, aging, sickness, and death? Is it possible that religions were born merely to provide empty psychological comfort from one generation to the next? Therefore, we must ask ourselves, what is the true purpose of religions coming to humanity? Do they come to build a foundation of humanistic ethics of cause and effect, helping humans strictly avoid causing suffering to themselves, to others, and to all living beings? Or do religions come merely to lull humanity into a beautiful dream of heaven, the land of ultimate bliss, nirvana, or illusions of attaining Zen, realizing the way, seeing one's true nature to become a Buddha, a deity, or a saint? From these reflections, we are compelled to clearly define religion. If the doctrines of a religion can be practically verified just like science, then those doctrines represent the humanistic ethics of cause and effect for humanity. Conversely, if the doctrines cannot be verified, they are vague, abstract, superstitious teachings, teachings that lull people to sleep like tranquilizers. After days of researching various religions, we chose Buddhism, because Buddhism is extremely close to science. Having chosen it, we dedicated our entire life, determined to sacrifice everything to conduct an absolute experiment on the teachings of this religion. Thanks to that unwavering determination, we successfully discarded a massive amount of heretical methods that had been mixed into Buddhist teachings. Ultimately, we practically verified the liberation of Buddhism in a highly concrete and clear manner. When living in this state of absolute liberation, we could not bear to watch humanity gradually sink into the abyss of suffering, all the while falsely believing they could escape misery through their intellect, their hands, or through techniques, science, and modern technology. They believe that modern science and technology will create an abundance of material wealth, which will bring them complete happiness and peace, ending all suffering. Such thinking is a grave mistake. If human beings lack ethics, they cannot possibly use material wealth to resolve human suffering. The more material wealth there is, the greater the human suffering becomes. Because of the insatiable craving for material things, numerous evil phenomena are created, and this world will be a living hell. Without ethics, and driven solely by materialism, human beings will become ferocious beasts or vicious demons. Knowing that our cultivation has not yet reached the majestic virtue of the Buddha, and that we lack the immense talent to undertake this colossal task, we still absolutely cannot turn a blind eye to the agony of the masses and the survival of true Buddhism, especially regarding the humanistic ethics of cause and effect. A religion with millions upon millions of practitioners, yet they are all practicing the wrong Dhamma. Therefore, we are not afraid to speak the absolute truth in order to rebuild the correct path of Buddhist cultivation, to illuminate the original teachings and ethics of the Buddha, and to save countless people who are currently lost, practicing wrong methods such as suppressing the mind. If there are still true practitioners of Buddhism in this world, then for the future of Buddhism, for all living beings, and for humanity, please join us. Willingly contribute your efforts to point out any errors, so that we may promptly correct them to ensure the right path of practice and the humanistic ethics of cause and effect in Buddhism. We sincerely express our deep gratitude to you all. Respectfully signed, Venerable Elder Thích Thông Lak, October 6, 1997. Afterword. In compiling and answering the questions of Buddhists from all directions regarding the Buddhist path of cultivation, we strictly rely on the 4 agamas in the Chinese canon and the 5 Nikayas in the Pali canon, combined with our own direct experience in actual practice. In compiling these answers, we understand the Buddha's teachings through our own direct experience in cultivation. We do not rely on the speculative interpretations of past or present scholars. We do not follow the deeply rooted paths of their teachings, nor are we influenced by their translation terminologies or by other religions. We compile these answers based directly on the Buddha's words in the original scriptures, which we have practiced and achieved practical, concrete results. Mastering life and death, and ending the cycle of rebirth through the power of our conscious mind and spiritual concentration. There are experiences of ours that perfectly match the methods of practice in the Buddhist scriptures. The vast majority of scholars and preachers, both past and present, are completely incapable of explaining them. Therefore, we must use specific verses from the suttas to prove that the Buddha actually taught such practices. These are not our own speculative interpretations, fabricated by an ordinary worldly mind. When verifying these teachings, we use parentheses to cite exactly which sutta, which page, and which sutra number it comes from, so that you can easily research it. Where the teaching is easy to understand and leaves no room for doubt, we explain it directly without formal citation. This should be seen as our stream of thought flowing in absolute harmony with the Buddha's words in the Pali Canon. Thus, we do not need to cite them, as doing so would only waste time unnecessarily. This Buddhist culture book series, The Path to the Buddha's Land, teaches straight into the holy life. The theory of the path and the theory of the Dhamma are taught completely parallel to the actual practice. This is to make it convenient for practitioners to know exactly how to live up to the holy conduct of Buddhism. Whatever must be fully understood must be fully understood. Whatever must be practically abandoned must be completely abandoned. Whatever must be cultivated must be cultivated. Whatever must be trained in body and mind must be trained. Anyone wishing to practice Buddhism must accept this path of cultivation. It is a supreme method that leads one out of the sinking suffering of this world. Throughout the 24 hours a day and night, there is no idle time. Practice is continuous. Even during the time of resting or eating, there are specific methods to practice. A Buddhist practitioner who practices exactly according to the teachings in this path will instantly, right here in the present, experience a life of complete liberation, happiness, and peace. There is no need to wait 1 day, 2 days, or 3 to 5 days. The results happen the very moment one determinedly begins the practice. The result is seen immediately. Not afflicting oneself, not afflicting others, and living a noble, peaceful life. Only those who lack ardent zeal, who fail to practice exactly as taught in this book, and who frequently lose their mindfulness, will fail to achieve the results of liberation. Even if they practice for a lifetime, it will be the same. They are people who claim to practice Buddhism, but their minds refuse to let go of the secular world, so their results are absolutely nothing. They are just playing at cultivation, wasting time uselessly. The purpose of compiling these answers is to rebuild the absolute core essence of Buddhism, helping everyone to understand Buddhism with crystal clarity and in a comprehensive manner. A religion that brings a peaceful and happy life, the closest to humanity, as practical and concrete as modern science. A religion completely free from superstition, abstract concepts, mysticism, or miraculous miracles. It relies entirely on one's self-reliance to escape one's own desires, to overcome the turbulent waves of human existence with an unyielding, courageous, patient, and persistent willpower. The objective of compiling these answers is to completely sweep away the heretical teachings that are currently masquerading under the name and meaning of Buddhism, which have blinded and deceived tens of millions of Buddhist followers across the 5 continents. The objective of compiling these answers is to point out straightforwardly for Buddhist followers to recognize exactly which bhikkhus are true disciples of the Buddha, and which bhikkhus are actually disciples of Brahmanism and Taoism. The truth offends. We know that besides us, there is absolutely no one else who dares to speak this straight truth. From the past until now, many people have known the falsehoods within Buddhism and how foreign doctrines have turned Buddhism into a religion of deities. Yet they remain silent, afraid to speak out. If they speak out, the great masters and venerable elders will use all means to threaten them, terrifying the junior monks into keeping their mouths shut. They cover up everything to hide their own wrongful actions. For this reason, Buddhism now only exists as a hollow outer shell, while the inside has been completely eaten away by termites. When true practitioners witness the current state of Buddhist monks violating the precepts, breaking the rules, living like secular people with abundant material wealth, lacking no vehicles, dwelling in huge mansions, living like royalty, who would not be heartbroken? This is a total degeneration of Buddhist monks, the ultimate destruction of Buddhism. Completing the Buddhist culture book series, The Path to the Buddha's Land, to clearly define the true path of Buddhist practice is an extremely difficult task in this era. Furthermore, printing it into a book would be nearly impossible to accomplish without the labor, effort, and support of Buddhist followers. However, as Buddhist monks, we clearly see and know that all worldly phenomena depend on conditions. If the conditions are insufficient, no matter how much we want it, success is difficult. If the merits of living beings are sufficient, those conditions will mature. There is no need to worry that this book will not reach your hands. We will devote all our strength to work so that this book reaches your hands as soon as possible, in order not to let down your expectations. Respectfully signed, Venerable Elder Thích Thông Lạc, October 8, 1997.